Hello, I'm Dominique Hadamio of Nurturing Astrology. I'm also the facilitator of Conscious Parenting with Astrology Moms Group on Facebook. I'm an astrologer, wife, and mother to a 10-year-old Pisces boy. Thank you for being here. Today, I'm going to be talking to Cornelia Hansen. She is an astrologer for 40 years, a retired teacher and family therapist. She also is a researcher and author. She released in 2018 her book, Kid Wheels, Understanding Your Child's Chart, and she teaches a course based on that book at Kepler College. So welcome, Cornelia, and let's get started. Okay, hello. We're here with Cornelia Hansen. Hi, Cornelia.
Hi.
So I did a little intro, and I kind of ran down a few things about your resume, but I'll just repeat it here and tell everybody a little bit more about you and also about how we met. So Cornelia, you have an MA in early childhood and clinical psychology, right? You're a licensed marriage, family, child therapist for over 17 years. She's been an astrologer for 40 years, and you were taught by Joan McEvers and Marion Marsh. 25 years as a school teacher, taught English, psychology, and humanities in high school for 9 years. And you are the author of Kid Wheels, which you did an article, a running article of this for years before you published the book, right? Kid Wheels, Understanding the Child in the Chart. Yes. And you teach this class at Kepler College, right? Based on your book. Nice. And the way that Cornelia and I met is here in Los Angeles at a meetup group some years back. And I actually took Cornelia's class online through Kepler and loved it. It was all about understanding temperament in the child's chart. And I had a young child at the time. And what I learned was invaluable for helping me nurture my child and really understand how he's built from this perspective of temperament, which was awesome and priceless. So Cornelia has become a friend and mentor of mine. And so I'm really excited to be working with her now. And let's dive into you and your life so that people can get to know you more. So I know I kind of gave the rundown of your resume, but how about sharing, a little bit about your life and your journey as a teacher and therapist and how you came to it all and how you came to astrology.
Okay. I had an early interest in psychology. I didn't come to astrology until after a 23-year marriage. I was going into a divorce, and it was quite stressful because I had 4 little kids. They were already teenagers, but that was a difficult time. And someone told me about this astrologer, which I had known nothing about. And I went to see her, and she was so remarkable in how she helped me through a very stressful time. Mm-hmm. And it encouraged me. And then she did other things for me that surprised me. And I said, I have to know more about astrology. So when we moved to the Valley, I started to look for an astrologer class. And I found Joan and Marion, and I started taking their classes for 3 years in order to get certified. And at the same time, I was getting this master's degree at Northridge in child development. I was fascinated in that course with temperament because there had been so much research done on it. It was now the main concept that child development was using in discussing differences, individual differences in children. And I said, well, why couldn't this be tied to astrology? I knew it was from the old school, but at the same time, it wasn't one of their major things. I see. So I said, well, I have a perfect opportunity because I was teaching in a preschool and I had 40 preschoolers, 2 to 4. And I said, this is a wonderful time that I could use for research because temperament is observable and it's measurable. And so those two are necessary for any kind of research.
Gotcha.
So it took me a while to plan it. I had to get approval from the school district to carry it out. I made out forms for parents to fill out about their child, how they felt their child was behaving in certain temperamental ways. They were given a questionnaire kind of to assess their feeling about the child. So then I could follow that through in the classroom by observation. And so I had plenty of people in my classroom. I had another teacher and 3 aides. So we were able to do this assessment over a period of time, watching the children in the play, inside, outside, different areas. And when it all was finished, I had all of this data. Plus, I was able to get all of their astrology charts because their birth certificate was on file at the center. So that made it easier. Yes. So I had all the charts and I had all the observations, and I began to skim through them and see what was common amongst children, for instance, who were very high active children or very low children, what signatures in their chart seemed to show that. That's how we had measured them, and came up with a pattern that I see described every temperament component. And so I could go from there. So I started studying more charts and more charts until I felt that I had enough information.
Fascinating. I love that. And how it's so interesting because you did this way back. Like when you did this research, when you were a teacher, what year was that? Like when was that? That was way back. So
it was in the 70s, late 70s.
Yeah. And I wonder if you were able.
But I could carry it on because I worked there a long time. So I could carry it on.
Yeah, that's great. I was just surprised that you, I guess because you worked there, you were able to get that permission and you had parents actually willing to participate.
Yes.
That's so great. I had tried something similar with Joseph's, my son's elementary class, because kindergarten, because the teacher was into astrology, but even the principal was fine with it. But when it came to making sure the parents were okay, they put the kibosh on it. I think it just wasn't the right, school. There were too many skeptics or what have you. So I think it's just so amazing that you were able to do that research right back then. So I feel like it's invaluable for teachers, like learning this for teachers and them being able to bring it into the classroom seems like priceless, even if the parents.
There's been a lot of research done on how temperament affects the education of the child. So teachers that are more aware of temperament can deal with that helped me. For instance, when I switched over from the preschool, I started teaching high school. I realized that there were a lot of kids that had difficulty paying attention. And so I bought a whole bunch of what they call fidgets, or little hand things that you could move with. And when they had those, they could concentrate better.
Yep.
And so that helped. The only problem was they kept taking them. Because they liked them so much.
Oh yeah, those things are great. They're still popular. There's all kinds of fidget things. There's new ones like with these little things you pop, little popper things. So they still have those and use them, which are great. That's awesome. And so what is your opinion then in terms of doing child's charts? I mean, what do you feel the real benefits for parents to understand their child's temperament and doing charts in terms of like the sort of, there's a little bit of skepticism, honestly, right, in the astrological community about doing child charts, in terms of maybe boxing them in or, preconceiving or, predestined what they are going to be or what they're going to be like. And I just see understanding temperament and the child from this perspective as unique in that, like you say, we're born with it. It's measurable. And we're showing the correlation between it and astrology, not saying your child's going to be this. You know what I mean? So how do you view the importance and value of doing child charts, and particularly from the point of temperament?
Well, this has been a problem with a lot of astrologers. They've asked this question: how much do you tell a parent? How much is it going to affect their interaction with the child? But what this does is it gives you a safe platform in which to discuss this particular child's temperament, which can give you keys to their behavior and what is going to give you a positive interaction with them, because it has a powerful effect. Temperament is there at birth. How do parents respond to it? Then the child responds to the parent. It's a total interactive process that goes on all through and development. So, for instance, if you had a family where you had a father who was very much into sports, he loved sports, he was engaged in sports, he watches sports, and he's got a new baby boy, and the first thing he buys him is a football. So, he has all these expectations of what he's going to do with this boy. But if you say to this man that this boy is not as active as you are, he doesn't have the need for all that physical activity that you do, nor will he have the interest in it because he's very creative, he's very imaginative. And so the best thing you can do is get him into art activities early, expose him to art, to music, those kinds of things, because this is what he needs to develop his full potential. Okay, rather than you getting in a conflict and expecting them to join the T-ball or whatever, because then there's going to cause conflict. So if you're aware of the child's needs, for instance, I write in the book about Hayden and Claire. When Hayden was born, I did the child's chart, and I told them that this child is going to be a shy child, what we call slow to warm up. That new situations, he needed time to adjust to each one, so to give him space, let him make choices, and encourage him rather than get annoyed with him for not wanting to participate in something. So they were prepared, like when they went on their first airplane trip, like when he first started kindergarten, how he was going to behave. And so they gave him a lot of assurances and a lot of comforting, and they understood his need to adjust to something. So if the parent's aware of the child's individual needs, then they can adopt new strategies to help that child develop in a positive way. Because if there's a conflict, you can damage that temperament by having a negative approach to it. So it's very important, really, for a child's development. That's the whole idea. As far as I'm concerned, the research says that if you are aware, the parents can be educated on how to raise their particular temperamental type child, which is going to be good for the parents and going to be good for the child and develop a good relationship.
Absolutely.
So that's basically how I view the importance of it.
Absolutely. And how much do you put on then when you're working with a parent or a set of parents and children, a family? How much do you look at the parent's chart, or inform and sort of explain the parent's temperament and the difference between their temperament and the child's, so that they know kind of themselves and how to make those adjustments where they themselves might run into conflict based on their different temperaments?
Right. Well, if I'm talking to a parent, I can talk to their child basically from their temperament. Your child was born with a certain type of temperament. Most children are going to be easy children. They're going to be easy. They're going to be in good mood. They're going to be adaptable. And that's 40% of children are going to be easy children. And the process goes along quite well. But if you get a shy child, there's different needs there. They need to be a little slower, a little more patient, etc. So you can talk about positive ways that this is the way the child is, and this is how you can help your child reach his maximum potential. That's the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we are going
I can have assessment scales that I can use with parents to view themselves and to view their child, and then compare them. And so I also give them information because they have all kinds of articles on temperament to explain what it is, how it works, and what the different components are. It's basically an education of the parents to what temperament is.
Yes, I took the course. I took your course that you teach at Kepler, and it was so great, so invaluable. And I learned, I felt like I got that psychology lesson and the developmental, lesson of the process of child development, which was so great because in my mind, it was always like, of course, the developmental process, you see it in astrology, the cycles of the planets. And I know they went together, but I'd never actually studied them together, the way that you put them together. So it was an invaluable course for me. And as much as I understood my son's chart, having that breakdown and learning about my temperament, my husband's temperament, and my son's temperament was really invaluable. And we have that sort of situation where my husband is more athletic and competitive, and he has to adjust to our son being more sensitive and more creative type, and not as driven in that way. And so now my husband enjoys playing sports. He coached him in t-ball, but at the same time we also support him in art class, and my husband raves about his artwork and how creative he is. He loves music and dance, which my husband secretly would have loved to been like a country music singer. So he loves that my son has those talents and those interests. So we've made those adjustments, but definitely taking your course helped me do that. And what we're going to put together is a workshop, sort of a introduction to your much larger course for people maybe who can't do that, or you're not doing that again till the summer, I believe, July or something, right? So we're doing just an intro workshop to temperament where we'll look at some charts, and we're going to offer these worksheets where you actually, the kind that you give to parents, right, to assess their child's behavior without the astrology to get that temperament, and then we'll teach them and show them.
Very observant of their children, and they can really assess easily. Did your child wiggle and squirm when you tried to dress them, or just lay passively? I mean, right. Mothers are very good observers.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Study and then observe. That's what it's always been about. And then you sort of make your choices. Yeah, so we'll do a workshop, a mini workshop. We'll offer those assessments, and we'll start teaching them how to learn temperament in the chart based on the configurations. It is based on the elements and the modalities, and get into some Q&A and some fun stuff to give them a taste. And then if they want to go deeper with you, they can enroll in the course that you teach at Kepler. And you teach that twice a year or 3 times a year?
Twice a year, usually in the winter and the summer.
Great, in the winter, the summer. So you can dive in and take the workshop, get a taste of it with Cornelia and I next week. Yeah, next week. Or you can, mark it and follow Kepler has a newsletter you can actually subscribe to. And then when your course comes out, it would be noted in there as open for enrollment. And we'll let everybody know in the group as well. And let's talk a little bit too.
5 weeks, 2 hours a week.
That's right. 5 weeks, 2 hours a week. Totally worth it. Priceless.
It's interesting. We get a lot of different viewpoints because the last class I had 2 women from Australia. That was interesting. One from Turkey.
Wow.
I've had one gentleman from Poland. So it's an international school. So we get all kinds of points of view, which is fascinating too.
Yeah. And I'm sure that just evolves your sort of own knowledge in your work, right? To have all these different perspectives. And so who would you say mostly takes your course? Is it parents? Is it teachers? Is it at both?
Most of the women that I've taught, and men too, okay, they're either there to find out about their child. Maybe they're having a certain problem that they don't quite understand what it is or how it works or what to do about it. Quite often I have preschool teachers or women who are nannies, people who work with children that want to understand them better. And I give them the techniques that they can use with that particular child. So it's helpful in that sense. So most of them are astrologers. They've taken many courses already, so they're familiar with the elements, etc. It's really not a beginning class. You really have to understand the elements, but it's not as difficult as learning the whole field of astrology. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Anybody who's a beginner who understands elements and qualities, etc., can probably work their way through the worksheets.
Yes, definitely. I would say that too. And so I would find it, invaluable if you're an astrologer who wants to do child's charts or is doing family charts or that kind of thing. It's like a no-brainer. Like this should be on your list of classes that you've taken or you've dove into this kind of work if you're going to be doing child's charts. I think because it brings sort of a level of really coming at it from an ethical, like, solid perspective, and you get away from that sort of putting them in a box because you're leaning on this research, right? And the developmental process and science. So I find that is really helpful. So I definitely would say it's for astrologers who want to move into parenting with astrology, which has become.
I think this is the future of astrology,
right?
Is doing more research to validate what we do, because I find this works. I mean, I can't explain why it works. It just does. But
yeah, that's what everyone says. Every astrologer says, I don't know why it works. It just does. But there is a whole.
Well, that's when you go through research. Yes. When you go through research and you said, look at all these kids that have this and they all fit into this category. You really understand them much better.
Put your camera down. You knocked your thing. Can't see it. There you go.
Yeah, the cameras are.
Yes, research is so important, And there's a lot of astrologers that actually focus on research, So explain to me also, I know what are you researching now? Because I know we're going to moving into some other fun workshops around areas that you've been researching. So do you want to share a couple of those research projects? The one I believe about Sun and Mars?
One of the things I was interested in when I was teaching in high school was brain research. How does that fit into the curriculum? We have to take advantage because it appears that the brain changes every 2 years. You get a growth spurt where the child is learning new stuff. And so the brain is sending out new dendrites and increasing its capacity. And then there's a 2-year period where the child is practicing all of those and perfecting them and connecting other parts of the brain, like the sensory and the motor are connecting. It's very important to understand those. For instance, they started Head Start with 4-year-olds, but actually the big growth spurt is between 2 and 4. And so they should have started Head Start at 2 years because you get the most bang for your buck, I guess, So knowing these brain stages is very helpful when you're teaching, particularly when you get up into the upper grades and where things are needed and what things are needed and what's going to help their child. Like the teenage years are so difficult because at that time the brain is going through a lot of changes. And that's why teenagers really need more sleep than other kids because their brain is doing all the work at night. They're not only learning, you can see such a marked difference between 9th graders and 10th graders. Somewhere in the middle of the 10th grader becomes more mature and can plan ahead, whereas 9th graders are what's happening this minute. Is it going to be fun? And so they have a little more difficulty in school and fidgeting more, et cetera, than the 10th graders. But it's somewhere in between. And I noticed this, that I had this one girl in the 10th grade, and later on, when she became a senior, she became my teacher's aide. And I had still had a 10th grade class, and she said, were we like this? Yes, you were. She could see the difference herself. Because when the brain changes and you start developing the frontal lobes of judgment and saying, okay, this is good for me or this is not good for me, you're making better choices. But 9th graders don't have that yet. They're much more into the moment and am I having fun? So it makes a whole difference. So knowing brains, research was good. And I used to teach other teachers in workshops about the brain, like knowing that short-term memory only lasts for about 7 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and then it's lost. You have to repeat things over and over and over and over again for it to get into long-term memory. And when I told my kids that as students, they said, oh, well, that's why I'm not passing. I said, no, if you try to cram the night before, it's too late. So when I started giving vocabulary tests every day, they said, why are we doing this? I said, because by the end of the week, you'll know all of the words. And that showed them that it was true.
Yeah.
You know, that they had to study every single day, that they couldn't just wait till the test came up to study.
Yeah.
So understanding how brain changes, it helps teachers a lot.
I think that's important for parents too, because I know that one of the things I dislike the most about being a parent is having to repeat myself. And yet you have to. It's part of how we teach and how we learn is through repetition. So it's something that I've embraced, you know,
right.
And trained my husband.
Know that your distractible child needs to learn in small segments.
Right. That's my son.
Whereas a persistent child can focus for a long period of time.
Right.
So teachers love those kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Teachers go crazy with distractible kids.
Yes.
Because they're always fidgeting and they lose their interest. If someone sits next to them that talks too much, they'll be paying attention to that, not the teacher.
Gotcha.
So understanding the differences is important.
Gotcha. So the work you're doing with the brain development has to do with the Mars cycles, how you've equated it to the Mars cycle, that 2-year cycle, yes. Right? And now you're also doing some research about the sun and the healthy development of an ego, right?
Yes, because ego is one of those things, having degrees in psychology and child development as well as astrology, you find that ego is a word commonly used by both groups and by astrologers. Mm-hmm. But what does it mean? And it has many different meanings depending on who's defining it. So I wanted to find, how does this really work? And you're not born with an ego. It's something that has to develop. And I found that it's based on decision making. So it's up to mothers to help kids make decisions. You know, give them options to make decisions and then reflect on those decisions. Was it a good one, or was it helpful, or was it not helpful? So that when they get up to the teenage years and they have to make decisions about, everybody's offering me drugs, should I take them? No, I'm not going to take them because it's not good for me. So they have to have a lot of practice by the time they get up to their teenage years and making decisions and knowing what's good for them and what isn't good for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And that's powerful because we're born with our temperament, but based on how we're nurtured, that can be influenced, right? And then the ego, however, you're not born with that. That is developed entirely. So understanding how to give our child options and learning to make decisions and problem solving is so important for developing a healthy ego. So I think you're doing
it begins at birth. I mean, you can see that in young children. Yes. A young child that doesn't talk, he doesn't have speech yet. Well, make it sound to his mother turns and says, you want something? And he looks over at what he wants. Okay, there's a bowl of bananas and there's a toy there. So she goes over to get the banana. You want a banana? And he looks away. And then he looks back at the toy. And then so she's now, oh, you want the toy.
Right.
So this dialogue is always going on with mom. He's making choices already and mommy's helping him.
Yeah.
Then when he gets language, then of course it's much easier to say, I want this or I want that.
Right. Well, I think it'll be fun if we can dive into some fun workshops and these other things as you're developing your research. And I know you want to do another book based on the brain development.
Yes.
So that'll be
Development.
fascinating as well.
Every age has a different issue, a different thing to deal with, and goes right along with brain development too. So it all comes together.
Yes. Yes.
Which I like.
Yes, I do too. I love putting, astrology, like being able to see everything in astrology. Oh, or how we learn. I'm sure you can see that in the chart. How their temperament. I'm sure you can see the chart. Like I love putting those together. And I think the research and the science, I love this blend, with the astrology. So I think you're doing like awesome things. And I hope that we can develop some fun workshops and really start introducing this stuff to parents or teachers or other astrologers who want to dive into this work. I think it's a really smart and responsible way to approach it.
Yes, I think it seems so complicated. You take one thing out and you look at that, but then after a while you have to be able to put it all together. That's what the brain does. It learns to connect different aspects of the learning process that's going on.
Yeah.
So if we understand that through research, we can finally come to the point where maybe we can say, yes, this works.
Right.
I can work with astrologers and I can work with psychologists and say, this is the temperament of this child. And this is what you have to deal with, because then you're talking about something that's validated.
Yes.
It's not just something that you're imagining.
Right. Right. Which I love.
More scientific proof, and that's where we're moving towards.
Right. Love that. I love that in the crane age. Well, thank you, Cornelia. This is great. Do you have anything else you want to share or thoughts you might have?
What thoughts I might have?
Yeah, about
the workshop?
Anything. Yeah, about the workshop. How do you feel about the workshop?
I think that would be a fun way to interchange with mothers. Having been a mother myself, I had 4 children. They were all a year apart. It was pretty hectic. And I used to wonder, because I was young, why are they all so different? They all seem to have such different needs. And I said, every mother asks that.
Yeah.
But they don't know why. Okay, what is it? It's the same parents, the same bringing up, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they react differently to it, don't they?
Yes.
Some children make it fine and other kids don't. Why?
Yeah.
So I think this is key, and how we can adjust things early enough so that every child gets a chance to be their best of what they are and who they are.
For sure, for sure. And a quick question about that too, in terms of temperament, how do you see temperament in children who are twins? If you have a set of twins and they have the same chart and their temperament's similar, but you know how twins can be very different. I see them as responding differently to their environment, even though they're the same temperament. How do you see twins and temperament?
It also depends on if they're identical twins.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
Now, I found that it depends on how far apart they're born. Because I looked at one set of twins, they're identical twins, but one was more outgoing and one was more introverted. And they were born so that one had a 3rd house sun, which is much more outgoing, than a 4th house, which is more introverted.
Right.
So you could see the difference in their temperament there.
For sure.
Also, I've also seen house placement has a lot to do with it.
For sure.
Because we have, I remember having a set of twins. They both have 5th house sons. Well, one used it in a creative way and one used it for sports. So it just depends on which the personal choices that one makes.
Right.
So we do have free will, don't we?
Yes. Oh, that's a whole different topic, but I'm glad you said that. I believe that too. We do have free will, but it's true. I always say there's a million ways a chart or a placement or something can manifest, and we do have choice. So
Joan McEvers used to do what she called a flip chart.
Okay.
She would flip the chart over and look at the twins that way as mirror reflections of each other.
Oh,
that was one way. I know that you need to research on that a lot.
fascinating. Fascinating. Well, this has been so great and fun. I'm so glad we got to get on and talk and introduce you to our community and beyond. And definitely check out Cornelia's book. It's available on Amazon, Kid Wheels, Understanding the Child in the Chart. And also her class at Kepler College will be available for taking that again in this summer. But in the short term, come and jump in on the workshop with us and get a taste, get to work with Cornelia, ask your questions. You can submit your child's information and any specific questions, and we'll get to as many of those on the workshop as possible. So that'll be a lot of fun. Cornelia, I can't wait to do these workshops with you and to bring your work more to the forefront and help more parents. I know it's your passion and goal as well as mine. So thank you for deciding to, saying yes and going on this journey with me.
Yes.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. See you on the workshop,
Okay.
hopefully. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, what a fun interview that was. Cornelia's great. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're interested in taking the workshop with Cornelia and I, the link will be in the show notes. Love to have you. If you're not already in the Conscious Parenting with Astrology Facebook group, please come on over and ask to be added to that group. We'd love to have you. And thanks again. Look forward to doing more of these for you, and we'll see you soon.